After years and years of waiting, Metroid Dread is finally a reality. I'm so excited to finally dive into a new 2D Metroid experience after such a long time. With Mercury Steam back at the helm here, let's see how they did with the Nintendo Switch title, Metroid Dread. Metroid fans will know that the concept for Dread has existed for a long time. It was once planned for the Nintendo DS but cancelled by longtime series producer Yoshito Sakamoto. Nintendo Power even promoted the game for a 2006 release, and more info to come at that year's E3, which of course didn't happen. Sakamoto felt the DS was not powerful enough for Dread due to the system's performance limitations. The concept of Dread soon became a long-time hope that would one day become a reality. Years later, Sakamoto was impressed with new studio Mercury Steam following their work on Metroid Samus Returns, and had them work with him on what would become Metroid Dread. With Dread's release in October 2021, it marks nearly 20 years since Metroid Fusion, the most recent original 2D Metroid game. I, for one, am excited because the last time we had a 2D Metroid game on a home console was Super Metroid. Mercury Steam is no stranger to Metroid, but they also have experience on the Castlevania side as well with the Lords of Shadow series, and thankfully, they do not disappoint here. Mercury Steam takes what they've built with Samus Returns and is able to do real justice with the Metroid franchise without being tied to having to adapt an older title. Metroid Dread's large, extensive map with the sheer fluidity of your movement makes exploring so satisfying. When movement feels so fun, the idea of backtracking isn't even seen as a burden, and that's what works so well here. The full 3D range of motion is back from Samus Returns, as is the melee counter feature, which you can use when running now. I feel like the enemies all have different timings for their counter, which makes it very satisfying to learn enemy patterns. Yet Dread features the use of the counter heavily within boss fights as well, further cementing it as a staple ability. Countering isn't necessarily for finishing most bosses, but successfully doing so does damage them considerably. Samus can now quickly slide through narrow areas while running as well, which helps with the fluid motions of exploring planet ZDX. If you've played Metroid before, these controls will feel natural to you. However, mainline Metroids are usually played on something like this, so it kind of deserves an update, or at least customizable controls to modernize it. You can't tell me that clicking in the stick ever feels good, especially when you have the whole D-pad that isn't being used fully. It's like they want even activating Shine Spark to be a challenge for you. The new Aeon abilities like the dash move or the cloaking device feel nice, but aren't too many brand new features in this game. It makes more sense for me, for a series that has not done well financially, to play it more safe with this entry by sticking to what they know works before branching fully into new territory. Dread maintains these Metroid traditions by bringing back nearly every staple ability in Samus's arsenal. I'd wish for more creativity with these abilities instead of the established ones, but they do work well here. The standout feature in Dread is definitely the Emmy. Despite fighting multiple throughout the game, each Emmy is different and brings new strategies you have to use to defeat them. Those zones are sectioned off, and once you are in one, you are in danger. This definitely takes notes from Metroid Fusion and the stealth sequences from Zero Mission. The Emmy are brutal, and if you get spotted, you are practically dead. These areas are so invigorating, and provide great chase sequences that let the movement system really shine here. You are intended to use the cloaking ability to sneak your way to the control room, but you can really tackle these sections any way you like. I feel like the Emmy AI sometimes is designed to always move towards Samus, even if you don't make any noise, but it wasn't a huge problem for me. Even if you get caught, there is a very small window to counter and escape, and it feels so good when you pull it off. Dying during an Emmy sequence gives you a checkpoint just outside the area, so you can keep trying and get right back into the action. Once you reach the control rooms, you fight this brain boss that is totally reminiscent of Mother Brain. It's even got the cute little onion rings! Once defeated, you acquire the Omega Cannon, which you use to take down the Emmy for good. It provides a neat perspective shift when in use, and it allows you to either fire a rapid shot or a final charge beam to blow off its head and essentially destroy the Emmy. The blend of 2D perspective with 3D assets make Dread look gorgeous. I love the variety of areas, and some rooms are just a marvel to look at. The enemy design is super cool, and I love seeing the X-parasites again, which makes traversing older areas still dangerous once they are loose. It's tightly polished, stylistic, and a great time. My favorite fight was definitely with the science experiment monster thing. You see hints of it in the background in this one room where you have to go through a few times, and then actually fighting it afterwards is so fun. I especially loved the sequence where you essentially have to use screw attack to kind of go through these different beams that are coming while the wind is blowing. It was just a really interesting and fun part of that boss fight. In this game, I kind of ran into a similar issue I had with Samus Returns, where you fight the same type of boss multiple times, like the Chozo soldiers here for example. I kind of wish we had more boss variety, like the science experiment boss. Seeing Kraid again was cool, you know, that's nice, but maybe newer enemies for Samus to fight. Like, Ridley is not in this game, and I think that's a good thing because he is dead. Samus does not need to keep fighting him in every game. With Dread, I never got too frustrated while playing. Its checkpoints are very generous despite it being probably the hardest Metroid game. Its challenge is in its combat and learning patterns. Puzzles or exploring the map was never really part of the difficulty for me. You do get the scan pulse quite late into the game, and you really should get this like right at the beginning if Metroid's going to continue the secrets in walls with no visual or audio cues to shoot them technique. It's one thing if it's telegraphed, but it's another thing if any random wall has a secret. It's a Metroid philosophy I recognize but don't accept as being good. But something like this kind of transcends Metroid games anyway, so whatever. Metroid Dread is intended to be the last part of the 2D Metroid story arc, and it does have some interesting revelations. Seeing actual living Chozo in a Metroid game is super awesome, and they look very cool. I think Ravenbeak is a compelling villain with a great tie to Samus's past. I wish we could have seen more of him throughout the game instead of him being alluded to after the first cutscene. I also love how it was really him speaking as Adam during the events of the game, as Metroid fans would catch that the way Adam speaks in Dread is not in line with how he normally is. The final fight is also probably my favorite boss fight in a Metroid game. I loved the whole ending and escape sequence too. I was in awe watching Samus scream as she attacked Ravenbeak. She doesn't get as much character development in this title than what I'd say we are used to for the 2D Metroids, but I still enjoyed her new physical changes. Samus is a Metroid, and that just blew me away, even though I should have expected it. Samus seems to have just about every type of DNA in her now, from Metroids, X-Parasites, the multiple Chozo clans, the list goes on. She's a huge blend of some of the strongest creatures in the galaxy. I really hope that Samus's Metroid abilities come back in future entries. Like, would the Federation care that she's basically a Metroid just roaming free? Is anyone gonna care that she has all of these different combat abilities from all these different species that are revered as like being the most powerful and deadly in the galaxy? I guess we'll find out next mission. I was fortunate enough to be able to secure a copy of the Collector's Edition, which is the giant box and includes some really cool things, including an art book that has art not just from Dread, but from the entire Metroid 2D series, and it also has these really awesome art cards too. At its peak, Dread is a pinnacle Metroid game that solidifies everything fantastic that Metroid can do and has done. But it leaves me asking Nintendo and Mercury Steam for more. I see it as Dread being designed to welcome back Metroid after a 19-year gap of basically no new entries. I'm hoping that whatever we get next progresses further and adds more new stuff. This is definitely an ending point for Metroid right now, but I wanted to pick up with very new ideas. It's great that this is a celebration of Metroid, but I want Mercury Steam to go full wild on the next one. I have no idea where Metroid is going to go next, but I do know that I will be there when it happens. As of now, I'm conflicted on if I like this more than Super Metroid. Both games are very, very strong, and they both have different sets of issues, but this is easily a contender for the best Metroid game yet. And that's Metroid Dread. As you can tell, I'm a big Metroid fan, and of course, this is an excellent Metroid game. It may even be the best 2D Metroid game that we have yet. But what do you think? What's your favorite Metroid game? Let me know, and in the meantime, thank you for watching.